Hello, so we're looking at examples from Chapter 8C, Sadler Methods, Unit 1. Okay, so let's just quickly remind ourselves of our little diagram to help with this. So we've got S, A, T, C. All right, so without the assistance of a calculator, state whether each of the following are positive or negative. So the sine of 240 degrees, so 180 comes around, goes halfway, so there's 180, 240 is down here somewhere, okay. Now, the sine of 240. Well, in this quadrant number 3, only tan is positive. So that means the sine of 240, sine of 240 will be negative, all right. Next one, cosine of 170. So 180 would be all the way, so it's not quite there, so it's going to come out somewhere like here. So this is 170 degrees. All right, in this second quadrant, only sine is positive. So the cosine of 170 will be negative. All right, C, the tan of 1.2 pi. This is obviously in radians. Let me just quickly rewrite it here. Tan of 1.2 pi radians. All right, first of all, you'll want to turn that into degrees, okay? So we know that, what do we know? We know that pi radians is equal to 180 degrees. So one radian will equal 180 divided by pi degrees. So 180 divided by pi, okay, degrees. So if I've got 1.2 pi radians, I've got 1.2 pi radians, and so we just multiply it by 180 over pi, times by 180 over pi, okay? You can grab a calculator for this, or you can try and do it in your head. So 1.2 times 180, 1.2 times 180, 180 times 1.2, sorry, my calculator. It gives me 216 pi over pi. Pi's cancel out, therefore it's 216 degrees. So it's saying, what is the tan of 216 degrees, positive or negative? So 216 degrees, let's see, it's going to be past 180, but before 170, so it's going to be sitting somewhere in here. All right, 216 degrees. And in the third quadrant, go back up to our picture, tan is positive. All right, so we're at positive. So the last one is the sine of negative pi over 3. The sine of negative pi over 3. Okay, so again, we need to convert this to degrees. So we've got negative pi over 3 times 180 over pi gives me negative 180 pi over 3 pi. Pi's cancel, 180 over 3 is negative 60 degrees. So that's going to be sitting, no, not there because it's a negative. So negative goes clockwise. All right, so that's negative pi over 3. All right, now, in that quadrant, only cosine is positive. All right, so therefore, the sine of negative pi over 3 is... Okay, so having a look at this diagram on page 171, what you can see is the right-angled triangle made with the x-axis can be redrawn in the first quadrant as shown. So if we look at this first circle here, all right, if we look at the triangle on the left with the point A, we can redraw that triangle in the first quadrant where we've created point P, and point A and point P will be the same except the signs will be different, okay? So point P has a positive x and a positive y value, and point A will have a negative x and a positive y value. If we have a look at the second one here, same thing. If we look at this point and compare it to this point, okay? Over here we've got positive x and a positive y. Down here we've got a negative x and a negative y, okay? Which we know links to the cosine of theta and the sine of theta. So point Q is positive cosine of theta and positive sine of theta, and point B would be negative cosine of theta and negative sine of theta. All right, and our last little example of this is over here, number 3. Again, look at point R. We're going to have positive x and positive y. And if we look at point C here, the numbers will be the same, but the x value will be the same. So they've both got an positive x value, which is the same. R has a positive y value and C has a negative y value. So what that means is the 2 points, the coordinates differ only in sign. Okay? Therefore, the sine or cosine or tangent of any angle will equal the sine or cosine of tangent of the acute angle made with the x-axis together with the appropriate sine. Okay? All right. All right, so let's sketch a little diagram here. All right, so we know that what we've got is the sine of 200 here. Okay, that's 200 degrees. All right. So what we can then work out, so we know the sine of 200 will be equal to, what we want to know is what is this angle here. So that's 200. 200 take 180 leaves 20, okay? All right, and then we have to work out, in this quadrant here, number 3, is sine positive. So again, draw our little picture, S, A, T, C. So in that third quadrant, sine is a negative, so that means that the sine of 200 is equal to the negative sine of 20. Well, let's go to example 7. So again, let's sketch a little diagram. All right, so express the tan of negative 155 degrees in terms of the tangent of an acute angle. All right, so it's a negative, so we're going this way. All right, so that's approximately 155 degrees. All right, so we're looking, what angle does it make with the x-axis? So here, all right. So that would be, I always say this wrong, I think it's the complement, adding to 180. So that leaves 25 degrees, okay? And we know in this third quadrant, tan is positive, so therefore the tan of negative 155 degrees is equal to the tan of positive 25 degrees. All right, example 8. So find the exact value of cosine 300. All right, so you can see I've just included our little exact values chart for you here. Let's have a look. So cosine of 300, let's write this under here. So the cosine of 300 degrees is equal to, all right, so 300 degrees would bring us all the way around to here somewhere. Okay, let me write 300 degrees in there. So what am I interested in? I want to know this bit here, which is 60 degrees. All right, now in this fourth quadrant, only cosine, I'll draw this again for you, S, A, T, C. So in this fourth quadrant here, only cosine is positive. So therefore, the cosine of 300 is equal to the cosine 60 degrees. And if we go up to our chart here, cosine of 60 degrees is equal to a half. And that is the exact value. All right, number 8. Find the exact value of the sine of 270. So let's do the same thing again. So we've got 270, which brings us all the way to here. Okay, so we've got the sine 270. All right, so what we want to know is, we're looking from this distance to the x-axis there, which is, of course, 90 degrees. I'll draw this again for you. S, A, T, C. So down in this third quadrant here, sine is negative. So that means sine of 270 is equal to the negative sine of 90 degrees. Now if we go back to our exact values chart, rub that out. All right, sine of, what did I say, 90 degrees is 1. So therefore, the negative sine of 90 would be negative 1, because the sine of 90 equals 1. Therefore, the negative sine of 90 is negative 1. All right, an example 10. Let me just move this if it'll let me. All right. Example 10. Let me return that. Okay. So we don't have a flashing bit on the screen. Okay, example 10. Give the exact value of 11 pi over 6. All right. So here's our little diagram. First of all, we need to convert it to degrees. So 11 pi over 6. All right, multiply it by 180 over pi to convert our radians into degrees, okay? All right, grab your calculator, type in 11 times 180, and you get 1980 pi over 6 pi. They cancel out, and 1980 divided by 6 leaves 330 degrees. So our angle here is 330, which takes me into here. Okay, 330 degrees. Now, again, let me sketch this for you. SATC. Nope, that's wrong. Sorry, I did these bottom two wrong. All right, let me sketch this again for you. SATC. So, in this quadrant, in the fourth quadrant over here, tan is negative, okay? So let me write this out. Tan 330 degrees is equal to. So it's going to be a negative. And we're looking at, from the x-axis, what's this value here? That's, of course, 30 degrees, okay? So it would be equal to negative tan of 30 degrees. So if I go up to my exact values, which we really do need to learn off by heart, tan of 30 is 1 over the square root of 3. We'll go down here. So that's equal to the negative 1 over the square root of 3. If we want to express it with a rational denominator, which means we want to get rid of that irrational number, the third at the bottom, we just multiply it by the square root of 3 over the square root of 3. All right, and we end up with the square root of 3 over 3, and it's, of course, a negative.